for being here today. I'm Dee Lisa West. I'm a dream doula and an atelier trained artist, and I help people tap back into their creativity.
I love that intro. I am Christina Spataro. I'm a psychotherapist and relationship coach, and I help people find their true selves and their true calling once more.
Oh, that's adorable. Well, I was talking recently to someone about being creative, making
Mhm.
art, and so many people tell me they don't make art. They're not a good artist. They aren't creative. And that's 100% wrong. 100% wrong. We are all creative. We're living in a creative universe. And what I remembered when I was talking to someone recently is being a little kid. I remember the day my auntie Karen lived next door. And I think my mom liked to get a break. She'd go play at Karen's house. So my sister and I went next door, and I don't know what my auntie was doing. She was doing something in the kitchen, and she had us sit down at the table with our coloring books and our coloring crayons, and my coloring book was full. And her son, Dean, my older cousin, was sitting there with us. And I said, Dean, my coloring book is full. Can I color in your coloring book? I was about 4 or 5 years old at the time. I wasn't school age yet. And he said, okay, but if you color outside the lines, I'm going to hit you really hard. And so, as I was coloring, I was terrified. I was coloring very carefully, trying not to go outside the lines. And in a couple of places, I did. I went a little bit outside the lines, and I thought, uh-oh, he's going to hit me really hard. So I found the black crayon and I outlined the whole image. You know how coloring books have a thick black line? So I did a thicker black line. And it didn't really show, but if you looked carefully, you could see a couple of places where I went out of the lines. And then I showed it to him and he said, uh-huh. And he ran off to play. So there was no consequence of me coloring outside the lines. He didn't even notice. Yet that really scarred me. And I'm certain that everyone in the world has been scarred like this, shamed like this as a child when they were enthusiastically being creative, making something, singing, dancing, coloring, making some kind of art. And someone said, that's wrong. What do you think, Christina?
I agree with you. I'm one of those people who never saw myself as a good artist. I love to draw. I love to sing. These are my favorite things. Yes, I'm not copying from The Sound of Music, but these are my favorite things. But I always would do like this apologetic thing. Like, I love to sing, but don't mind me, I'm not a singer. And I think it totally goes back to people thoughtlessly and sometimes cruelly, like making fun or saying, oh, like, really? Like you're saying, and people don't realize, especially if you say it to a child, that stays with you. I can tell you as a therapist, this stuff has stayed with people. So, people think, oh, it's no big deal. And to this day, I can tell you, and unfortunately, I did have some incidents where I was bullied. I admit that. I definitely had some incidents in my childhood where I was bullied. And I am an adult. I am a licensed therapist. I'm a professional woman. But do I remember those incidents? Do I remember those mean words that were said to young me? Yes, I do. And I can
Yeah,
tell you, most people do.
yeah, yeah. I have a good friend who's been married for over 30 years. And just a few years ago, he went to a workshop about singing. And it was a week-long workshop. And one of the things they talked about was this very thing. Like, did someone tell you when you were younger you couldn't sing, or you sang out of tune, or your voice didn't sound nice? And this man realized in that workshop, he had done that to his wife. He had told her sometime in the beginning of their relationship that she couldn't sing. So at the end of this workshop, he came home and he said to her, "I'm so sorry that I ever told you that you couldn't sing. And I realized that this is how a lot of people stop singing. So I want you to know that you can sing whenever you want to. In fact, I would like to sing duets with you." And they do. They make music together now. They go to open mics and she writes songs and she's just blossomed into being really happy about making music. Um, I have to say, his voice is better than hers,
Mhm.
but still, he accepted her and loves her. And when they sing together, it's a really beautiful thing.
Oh, and what a beautiful gift he gave her
Hmm.
to say, honey, I am sorry I ever made you feel bad. I want you to sing. And see, this is the thing I wish people understood. Sometimes we say things and we may not intentionally be trying to be mean or hurtful, but we say things without thinking and we don't always realize the impact it has on the other person. Where a kind word, giving someone the space to be imperfect, to say, I love you just how you are, that is a gift that frees the person to completely blossom. You know, there's a time to correct and possibly, but there's also a time to let someone be.
That's beautifully put, Christina. And what I was thinking about the other day is like, okay, you're a kindergartner, you're making the apple some crazy color. Some teacher says that's not the right color. You can't make the apple that color. Well, why not? You're using your imagination. There's a time, like if I think if you're in a realist art school and they're teaching you how to make a painting look, well, exactly like someone painted it in the Renaissance, that's the time to say you're doing things less skillfully than you could. Move it over this way, shade it a little bit that way, add this color here and that. They teach you the tricks to make the eye believe what it's looking at. But if you're in kindergarten coloring in a coloring book or even doing an art exercise for fun, there is no wrong way to do it.
I love that. Yes, there's no wrong way to be creative. And I liked the example you used. If you're in a class and they're trying to teach you maybe particularly vocal technique, or they're trying to teach you a specific art technique, then yes, at that time in that place, it's a place, but you still have to also be gentle with your correction. Say, okay, let's try it this way. Not like, oh my goodness, you're a talentless hack. Say, let's try it this way. But then if somebody just is wanting to draw and embrace the artistic muse, or if someone just wants to sing Christmas carols, don't tell her, do you know that you're not quite keeping up with the tune? Sing
Right.
my Christmas
Well, I was
carols.
in the fourth, another memory just popped up, so I'll share another time when a teacher just really hurt my feelings. My fourth grade teacher, don't remember his name, he was a man, and he had us do an art project with found items. So we were supposed to, I think, glue, I think maybe it was a collage, but I decided to go real wacky. So I picked up things on the street, bottle caps, wrappers, dirt, and I mixed it all with Elmer's glue and I glued it onto this piece of paper. And when they had the opening night for parents, my picture was not up on the wall. And I said, "Why? Why didn't you put my picture up on the wall?" And he said, "That's all that stuff's going to fall off. It's just dirt and stuff you found on the ground." And I thought, "No, it's not." A year later, I had that piece at home and it was still sticking to the paper. And I was thinking, dude, you're so wrong. It's stuck up there. He just didn't like it. And so he didn't say he was curating an art show for the parents to see, but he was. And it really made me feel sad and unseen. And, maybe I was doing it to be kind of a brat. I don't remember, but still, he could have put it up. He could have shared it. He could have put it on the wall, even if the dirt fell off, but he didn't.
And he should
And
have
that,
put it
that
up on the
might
wall.
be that might be one of the times that I decided I was not an artist.
Yeah. So think about that. I had the reverse, and I shared this story in another video about the third grade teacher that praised me on my writing, that basically told me I was a good writer and told me to never stop writing. And it's because of him, thank you, Mr. Mahoney, that I'm still writing to this day.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Oh, that's so beautiful. So just to think about that for a moment, who were your advocates? Who were your champions when you were growing up and or even when you're an adult, when you're trying something new and you feel a little awkward, and then someone says, that's good, do some more of that. That can really, really guide us and help us to blossom and become more and more of who we really are.
Exactly. Words have such power. I mean, we all know the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword, and we all know the saying, the power of words. But how often do we really consider our words? How often do we think, am I saying something to somebody that can uplift them? Or am I saying something that can crush them?
Mhm. Right. And most people, even adults, I help adults be more and more creative,
Mhm.
and they all sort of come to my courses and my workshops with a fear that they're going to do it wrong. So the little child in them is the one that comes to play with art supplies. And one of the things I talk about is, were you shamed as a kid because you did it wrong? Because there's no wrong way. Everything's right.
I love that. Everything is right. I love that. That's actually a lot I use a lot with my clients when we're dealing with feelings, but it counts with everything because especially some of my clients have been told to hold back their feelings and their emotions. And so now they have all this bottled up stuff and they don't quite understand why they're reacting a certain way or why something's triggering for them. So part of what I do is help them bring out these emotions. And I said, there are no right or wrong emotions here. Whatever you're feeling is okay. All feelings are okay.
Mm. Yes. Oh, yeah. As a child, I was told not to cry a lot. Stop crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry about. Was the
Oof.
mantra at my house. I was like, I remember one day my mother saying that to me, and I was like, I couldn't stop crying. The crying was just happening to me. And I tried to hold my breath, and I tried to blink my eyes, and I was like, I can't stop crying. It's not like if you're crying,
Yeah,
oh, that's like stifling a laugh, a hiccup, a sneeze. I mean,
you
yeah.
can't. And that actually, I'm so glad you brought that up because so many people think, well, like if somebody's upset, oh, just stop. Okay, if it was that easy, you wouldn't be upset. If you weren't having a deep emotion, then you wouldn't be crying. Now, granted, are there some people that do like a fake cry thing, crocodile tears? Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about people who are experiencing a genuine emotion and you can't control a genuine emotion, nor should you be told to, especially by people who are supposed to care about you. If you care about somebody, You should want them to express themselves to their fullest ability, express whatever emotions they're feeling. And like you said, stifling it is the same as stifling a cough or a sneeze. And we all know how you can't stifle those. Can't stifle the others either, because if you try, you're actually hurting yourself. So now this person that was taught, when you had said, don't cry, I'll get something to cry about, guess what? Now, if you need to feel an emotion, you need to express something, you're going to have a harder time doing it because you were told it was wrong.
Oh, right. Yeah, most of my life, I did find a way not to cry. Did you know that you can't cry and swallow at the same time?
I
Someone
didn't
told me
know
that
that.
when I was a businesswoman and I wore suits to work every day. And they said, women, when they're really, really angry, cry. Men yell. So if you're in a business meeting with a bunch of men and you're really upset, crying is not going to get you what you want. So take a drink of water. And I
Mm.
thought, what? And I have tried it, and I'm just kind of sad to say it works. So if you feel the crying coming on and you're in a big important meeting, swallow, take a drink. It will stop that physical cry thing that's about to happen in you.
You just may have answered a question I have long had. Like, if you see somebody who's upset, somebody keeps wanting to offer them water. And I always wondered, why offer the person water? Have you ever noticed that? Like, if somebody's crying upset, can I get you some water? I'm wondering if that's tied to that. If this how he'll keep offering beverages. Because if you swallow, then you're going to stop crying.
Wow.
You just answered a question for me. Like, is this why? Like, if you're upset, I've seen it so many times. Like, if somebody's upset, people's natural inclination is to offer them something to drink or water or even tea or something. And I'm thinking, I thought before it was like a soothing thing, but now I'm thinking, is it this somebody discovered you can't swallow and cry at the same time? So it's a shutting up thing.
I love that. Well, when I used to manage a real estate office, I had 65 agents and 7 staff people, and people would come into my office, they'd shut the door and they'd say, "Can I tell you something?" And you, as a therapist, would know they're about to spill some emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a box of tissues. So they would start to cry and tell me their story, and I would pull out the tissues and hand them to them and let them cry. Men, women, they all told me their stories. I was honored to listen to them because I thought, well, I don't know why they're telling me this, but they must need to tell it to somebody. So I'm going to listen. It is uncomfortable, though, m- to be with someone who's having really, really strong emotions. We're just not taught how to deal with that.
And I think that's a skill we should be taught because I think, and I read another article ages ago where they spoke about that, how when people are upset or crying, how their inclination is to kind of shut them up because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with the feelings. And I think of all the skills we teach children, I think one of them should be how to deal with emotions and how to help others deal with emotions. I'm often talking to people, there seems to be just lack of empathy seems to be taking a hold sometimes. You read some of the things that are going on out there. People who are narcissistic seem to be coming to the forefront. And you're wondering, why is that? I'm like, well, if you're taught to hate emotion or not how to handle emotion, because part of empathy is being okay with your emotions and the emotions of others and to feel what someone else is going through. If you're taught that that feeling is somehow wrong or you're being too sensitive or too emotional, I can't tell you how many clients, especially men, who've said to me they were made to feel bad for being too sensitive. So, and that's a horrible thing to do to somebody. It's a horrible thing
Uh,
to do.
I agree. Yeah, men, especially in my era, growing up in the 50s and 60s, men don't cry. You act tough and you bully through it. Women cry, but that makes them weak. So we have all these ideas about what having a strong emotion means about who we are, instead of realizing that having strong emotions is part of being alive.
I love that.
Yes,
Having strong emotions is part of being alive. It's the thing that distinguishes us from the robots.
indeed.
So, do you want to be a robot or do you want to be a human? And the answers to that is you want to be a human. But that means we have to get comfortable with emotions and how to handle them in the right way. All right, I'm going to use a couple of movie things here. We're going to movies. Because when you were talking about the coloring, it reminded me of this. And this actually is a very intense movie. It's Sybil. It's based on a true story of a woman who had multiple personality disorder. Now, there's been some controversy after the fact of whether she did or she didn't, was the psychologist being real or not. But the movie itself, Sally Field, either she was nominated or she won one of her Oscars for this. She was incredible. So she played this woman with these multiple personalities. And I'm going to do a spoiler here. It shouldn't surprise anyone. Sybil's multiple personalities were the result of horrible, horrible abuse by her mother. It's just wicked, wicked woman. Um, the cruelty. But there was one scene in particular where she is coloring in, I want to say it's a chicken or something, but she's using a purple crayon. And her mother, who would fly off the handle for anything, made her feel horrible for that. And the only one who would lovingly accept her, who was her cheerleader, was her grandmother. So one of her personalities was an older grandmotherly type woman who was the grandmother who was the only one that made her feel safe and loved. So there was her champion, but the mother was so cruel. And so she's having this flashback of memory and she's crying in like the psychiatrist's office. And then she's in the personality has reverted back to the little girl. And the psychiatrist is saying, it's okay to draw purple chickens. That's okay.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's an extreme example of what happens to us. I mean, there's a part of us that's afraid to let our true little child, the creative, if you've ever hung out with a little kid who's maybe 2 and you ask them to draw something,
Mm-hmm.
they'll make a little scribble and they'll say that's something. There was a little kid I hung out with. Everything he drew was a fire truck. He could barely say it. Fire truck. He would draw a big squiggle. Fire truck. Another thing. It didn't look like anything. It didn't really look like anything at all. But I was like, wow, nice fire truck. Um, and yes, if you look at little children's drawings, I have an artist friend who started making drawings in collaboration with his young daughter, who's like 4 or 5. She would draw an alligator, and he would make that alligator into a painting, but in her shape. Pretty amazing because and I think Picasso was quoted. I'm gonna bully the quote, but I'm gonna make it wrong. But it's something about it took me my whole life to remember how to paint like a child again. Because everyone who's an artist wants to have that free, expansive feeling of what kids do when they're free to do their art and they're just in the zone of making something. And maybe it's a purple chicken, maybe it's coloring outside the lines, maybe it's singing, and you're not even singing in the same key as the other guy's singing, but you love doing it. Oh,
Exactly. It reminds me, do you remember the Sesame Street song? Sing, sing a song, sing out loud, make it strong. Don't worry if it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing, sing a song. Fa la 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 la. And sadly, we've lost Bob and we've lost Luis, and they taught us that song.
Oh, that's great. That's a great place to stop today. So sing along, draw your purple chickens and be creative, people.
I love it.